Hey there, welcome to episode 26 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. Today is just before noon on May 8, 2024. You can hear already my voice is not going to cooperate. The reason I did not record this last night was I was having some of the same things, so something is in the air, as usual. I was not out singing all night, so I'll see if I can loosen up my voice sometime through the show. I'm brewing a pot of coffee right now. I know coffee is not the best. Maybe I'll take a quick tea break before I continue. But I did want to get the show on the road for this week, episode 26. It is a possible aspect change. I'll see if I can get through the summary and the links, and then we'll take a break for some tea. If you are familiar with the Hunt for Red October, you know that a possible aspect change may indicate what they called a crazy Ivan. This is actually a Cold War term. A sudden change in direction to see who's behind in the baffles of a submarine, or maybe someone in life, be it a submarine or perhaps someone else, something else. Wherever you found your audio program, hopefully you have a show description, an episode description, show notes, where that summary will be found mostly. I always add a little bit in there. As well as the links relevant to today's episode. The first two, completely self-serving, self-promoting. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. You do not have to buy me a coffee, but I do use the profile page there for links to the various audio programs, GitHub projects, and other things. I also have a list of some of my favorite coffee beans. Any funding that does come in through this portal goes towards coffee, which powers all of my projects, aside from personal brilliance. As well, the coffee.com/DanHugo profile, really more of a feed page, I think, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Once I get our website projects up and running, which I keep talking about, but it keeps getting to the bottom of a list somewhere, there's a coding component that goes with a bigger project, which I've been doing episodes on about this on the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. So you can listen in on there. Basically, I want to be able to aggregate and publicize for easier discovery content creators, podcasts, video episodes of programs wandering around Vegas, etc., so that people can be more easily discovered and also connect pieces of content across. So you might have a restaurant opening and you have 3 people doing YouTube videos about it. Try to make those all visible together. Vegas is a kooky place, but there's a lot going on, and the very notion of discovery has been identified multiple times by multiple people looking at it from multiple angles as a substantial problem. So that's a project that I'm looking at as a startup, hence good material on Impresarios, which is about entrepreneurial innovation. Man, my voice is really yelling at me. It's teed off at me, perhaps. So very quickly, I have 3, 4, 5 links. First one is a Medium article, which actually prompted me to do this whole episode. It's I wish someone told me to disengage whenever this happened. And I can hear my coffee is done, if you can hear that beeping. The author of this article describes some specific things, circumstances, and some turmoil. I commented on the article that I think it's a she, the person, I'll just say the author, comments at one point about having a house fire, or my house is on fire, and I think that's supposed to be a metaphor, but I said I had an actual house fire, and I encountered some of these same things. Things like that is where you can kind of see clearly, not that you expect. You're not like standing outside your burning house, like, where's everybody? Whoa, why aren't you showing up? But there were people who really offered more than they, I don't know, should have, but more than anyone would have expected. Not like I was wandering around saying, what are you going to do for me? And it was sort of an eye-opening time. I would have expected the sort of middle, like, oh man, is everybody okay? Like a normal human concern. And there were even a few people that were bizarrely negative, which luckily they weren't around for much longer. They got factored out pretty quickly. So it's an interesting article. It is a members only article. So if you're not a Medium Pro member, I guess, or something, I like Medium. There's a lot of really good articles on there. So I give my $5 a month. But I will step through some of the bullet and headline or section head items and compare and contrast with some of my experiences. So we'll do that later in the episode. I have a Wikipedia page on the Crazy Ivan, which I already referred to. It is a clearing the baffles in a submarine, a Cold War term, appears in the movie. But hey, a human can do that every once in a while. You take a hard turn and see who's back there. You might find that people don't always continue following when you pivot. The Dunbar number is a sort of dubious, it's a number people throw around sometimes. I've done a whole episode on it somewhere, I think in the Impresarios series of episodes. It's the notion that you can only have 150 close relationships, give or take. The contention is that this was based on primate brain volume correlated to group sizes, like groups of chimps or other apes, social groupings and whatnot. The basis for the Dunbar number assertions have come into serious question, and I think for the most part people will disagree. They'll say, well, I have 151 friends. I'm fine. But the notion comes up, though, and I think the valid component of this, there's not really a good number for everyone. So I don't think there's one single universal benchmark. But I think, my opinion, just from a practicality standpoint, I don't think it's possible or practical or valuable to pretend that you really have 5,000 friends. Facebook has completely broken the notion of what a friend is, so you can choose your own definition of that, but you really can't have 5,000 friends. Can you have 150 friends? Maybe. Can you have, and the close associates could include family, friends, colleagues. So the inner circle, the people that you are most trusting of, perhaps, or the I think it's a Dave Attell line, a friend will help you move, a good friend will help you move a body. The people in that latter inner circle, maybe 150-ish, maybe 10. Who knows? It depends on the person and the people you have encountered. It's probably far more complicated and more unique and personal than any one study could properly pretend to justify in having a number. I don't think that's possible. But I think it is interesting in today's world. And, if you're going to look at social media, you can see in some cases when someone has 1 million followers, or if you're Selena Gomez on Instagram and you have all of the followers and you only follow 10 people, like, those are not friendships. You're not friends with 50 million people. And likewise, you may not be friends with the 10 people you're following, or 100 or whatever. So the following and friend on Facebook notion has sort of warped the sensibilities. But I think, well, it just varies per person. So we'll touch on that a little bit here. The Mokusatsu 1 Word 2 Lessons paper published by the NSA regarding the use of the term Mokusatsu in Japanese, of course, printed in Japanese in the Japanese media during World War II. It was an offer of, was it the Potsdam Declaration, I believe, to Japan, to the Prime Minister and the Emperor and the various other characters who were holding up their end of the process. The response to the declaration sent over, which was basically a proposal to end the war, the response was Mokusatsu, which is specifically contemptive, the silence of contempt, I think. So it's not intended to have a positive meaning. It's not intended to be optimistic. It's like, I'm not going to bother responding to you because you're not worth it. That's the sense that we get. In the NSA document, they go into how that's that was the meaning taken by the American side, which led eventually to dropping of new weapons on 2 cities in Japan. The contention is that the other meaning that might have been intended was a contemplative silence. So when I use this term, I use the words contempt and contemplative. So their assertion is that the Japanese side may have meant we are thinking about it and we are considering our response. And so we are not acknowledging it until we have a considered response. And that this delay and the silence was taken as the silence of contempt. And so the plan to drop at least the first new weapon was executed. 1 word, 2 lessons. It's an interesting read. You can flip through it if you like. And then I've included as well, for completeness, a potential for some mistranslation, the analysis of that. I don't think it refers to that paper specifically, but to the assertion that there were the 2 meanings. And that is on the organization by the English Studies at NBU. The English Studies Department, I guess, at NBU 2021. Yeah, it links to it. Both of those are links to PDFs. So, it's about the author of that is Boris Naimushin, New Bulgarian University, Sofia, Bulgaria, and the, English Studies Department. So you can flip through that. Basically says, that's kind of the easy way out. It goes into some other cases of language as a reason, translation as an excuse kind of thing. But I use the term mokusatsu in reference to people, to the common word now is ghosting, or which would be the negative, the silence of contempt perhaps, versus not responding to people who you do want to respond to, but not treating the response as a valuable element, a timely response, a valuable element. There were times when people would actually write. They'd put a pen on paper and drag it around and make symbols, and they would put it in another piece of paper, and they would sometimes lick it or use adhesives and stick it together and write on the outside of it again, put a little indication of value on one corner, and they would put it in a box on the street, and it would magically appear at a destination for another person to read. And then they might fashion a response in using similar methods and do the same. And there might even be a back and forth conversation like this, which would take real effort. And most of that effort has been replaced now by instantaneous communications. And you can even, here's a fun fact. Obviously, I'm speaking about writing a letter to someone. When you write a letter, usually a personal letter, right? You're not writing it on carbon paper. You're not typing it with carbons. You're not making a second copy. You're not doing the right hand, left hand writing, Galileo style. So you don't have a copy of the letter. It's a heartfelt or a sincere communication. You're sending it to the person. You're not storing it in a file. You're not recording it for posterity. So you may or may not remember every word that was in that letter. So when they respond, hopefully in a timely way, you ideally will have some recollection, but they may say, yes, you're right. And you're like, oh, what was my question? I don't remember. All of that has been solved nowadays with message quoting, or now there's a chat, which is even quicker, meant to be asynchronous, but in real time. So you are now free to respond. You can even see when people are typing. You'll say, hey, they're typing. Oh, wait, they stopped typing, and drive yourself crazy with that. But communication has become so much easier and so often instantaneous, which amplifies the mokusatsu effect, which I think is interesting. And it can drive you crazy, or it can be a signal to yourself about how much effort you put in, whether you should adopt a mokusatsu stance. So we'll get into all of this and more after I take a quick break for some tea, some hot tea, and then that coffee I just made will be for after I I finish this episode. So hang on. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. I have some Egyptian licorice tea. Licorice. I've always said licorice. I can feel it a little bit. My voice is a little bit more cooperative, but we'll see how things go. So this episode is about the company we keep, the number of friends, the number of business colleagues, how we look at those relationships individually and in groups and aggregate, and the fact that I've been proactively limiting that engagement for the calendar year 2024 so far as something of an experiment, but also something of a sort of an audit of available resources and how I'm spending them, time, energy, sometimes financial, but mostly time and energy. So let's begin. You'll hear me sipping some tea. It's still a little bit hot. Yeah. See how it goes. All right. So first, maximum versus optimal. I mentioned earlier, you can have as many Facebook friends and Instagram followers and TikTok followers and Twitter, mostly followers now. I think only only Facebook is sticking with the friends. LinkedIn I think is following. Now, the interesting thing, right, just as we're getting started here, you can follow someone on Instagram. They don't have to follow you. They don't have to, unless you have a private account. You can have a one-way follow. This is in a directed graph. You are on one end of the arrow. The arrow flows in one direction. So you are following someone. In the Facebook and the LinkedIn models, you invite someone to be a friend or to connect on LinkedIn, and they accept. And now it's a two-directional arrow, right? You are mutual friends or connections on these platforms. That is interesting because you can you can follow people on LinkedIn, and you might be able to follow people on Facebook. It's been a long time. It's been coming up on 3 years, I think, since I've used Facebook. But and then the advent of pages, you can literally I have a page for the Innovate for Vegas Foundation with 730, I think it is, 728, 2930, somewhere in there. People are following the page. There are multiple people involved. I rarely post on there anymore, but we really don't get much engagement, so not totally valuable. But they're following a thing and not an individual. You could have your own page on LinkedIn that people could follow without having to deal with being connected to others. They can follow your personal account. So there's a lot of different ways to engage with people on these social media platforms. I wonder why. Does it rhyme with algorithm, perhaps? Their goal on these platforms is to monetize these engagements. So any way that they can analyze your connections, your friends, the engagement with the content that each are sharing and so on, it's a big algorithmic facade. But to the individual person, especially if you're younger, I think other books have been written, studies have been done, congressional hearings have been held. Younger people are impacted more by these things. But I will say, it was easy to fall into the trap 10 years ago where you're like, oh, I get a lot of likes on my Facebook post. Oh, a lot of people are looking at my Instagram picture. Wait, why am I getting a lot of views but not a lot of likes? Does that mean they don't like my picture? How come I have a lot of followers but now I lost 10 Wait, why are people unfollowing me? There's a lot of angst that can arise out of these things, which we'll get to in a second. But so to maximize the number of friends on a social media platform usually has some sort of a goal. You're trying to sell something. You're trying to up your cred, your clout. You may want to reach. Hang on a second. I've spoken to a person here in Vegas where I live. He would introduce himself, and I don't even remember his name. Why? Because he would introduce himself and he would say, I have 40 million followers on Instagram. And I'm like, okay, it's like an odd thing to lead with. That's what he's got. I think he's a DJ, some other things maybe, but I remember 40 million followers. I don't remember his name. I remember he's got 40 million followers on Instagram. So his hook was, I have the 40 million followers, so if you ever need like to get the word out about something, I'll post it on my Instagram account. And not even for money, right? He's just trying to be a good citizen, right? Especially in the startup scene here in Vegas, if you want me to help get the word out about a product or something. Okay, that's interesting. So I said, how many of those 40 million are here in Vegas? He's like, I don't know. I don't know for sure. I said, okay. Most of the things I do are based in Vegas, so okay. And then how many of them are bots, etc. So the focusing on these numbers when you don't have, they're kind of opaque, that may or may not be useful, valuable. It probably isn't good for, I'll use the term mental health. I'm not a mental health professional, but I think it can sort of get under your skin or maybe into your brain that having more followers or friends is a good thing. Somehow correlates to the quality of the product, your content, your commentary. I commented on this post, but nobody replied. Nobody liked there are so many signals that are used on the service side, server side literally, but the Instagram service wants to know who's clicking on what. Can it reorganize the ordering that it presents things? Will it present things that are regional, that are related to the people you're already following? Probably yes to most of these things. Did you comment on? Did you like? How many ads can they place interstitially in your Instagram feed? Same with TikTok. TikTok is generally known for being able to zero in on the things that will most distract you from productive life. So they'll just keep filling your For You page, I think it is, so that you will always have another video waiting after you swipe up. Oh, another video I want to watch. And it can really, I deleted I had the TikTok application on my phone for, I'm going to say like a couple months, up until a couple years ago, I'm going to say at least a year ago. I removed it, and I somehow logged into TikTok on my phone and used my phone number maybe, or the app, whatever. So I didn't create an account with a login. So I created an account with a login, started over on my web browser, and then I was like, this is not, I'm starting to notice why there's all this hype about this. It's just artificially shooting directly into your dopamine receptors, right? It's literally, you like that? Here's exactly the same thing in another juicier form, and yet more juicy in the next. It just keeps feeding up in the dosage. So I was like, okay, I'm done with that. So now people are, they're wanting to post they're wanting to post links to TikTok videos. You'll see entire articles written about a 20-second TikTok video. That is boredom. So they'll embed a link to the video, and you can watch the video if you want. And more often now they're problematic. They don't load. The link it's kind of broken, or it goes astray. Of course, they really want you to install the app, but I view it in the mobile web browser or desktop web browser. And then you can see the one. If you want to go beyond that, sorry, you're gonna have to sign up. You're gonna have to get in the drug train. And Instagram is almost like that. Twitter's kind of joined in the fray with like, oh, you gotta sign up for an account to read the second or third click into this stream of things. So these are money making platforms. All these numbers, all this engagement, all the signals, they are all about that. And I think it's problematic when people translate that somehow into their own personal value, or judging in some way, or valuing or measuring in any way their personal relationships with other people, in my opinion. So the other thing is, I have noticed, I joined LinkedIn in August of 2013. No, 2013. August of 2003. They launched LinkedIn in May of 2003. I was in Silicon Valley for years, changing companies. Like, oh, finally, an electronic business card. Started, and I was living in Phoenix at the time. It's before I went back for my second helping of Silicon Valley. So you connect with, oh, hey, I used to work at this company. So there's a little, almost like classmates, a little nostalgia. Connect with some of your former colleagues. What are they doing now? Okay, that's interesting. LinkedIn has become the new Facebook. So judging your workplace or your career success, your penetration into your marketplace, wherever you do your thing, whether it's, I'm a recruiter and I have 1 million connections on LinkedIn. People will brag about those connections. I've seen it. And so you have these big numbers wherever they are. And LinkedIn is very popular because they will only show that you have 500 plus connections. So you're like, oh, I literally had someone post, oh, we have 50,000 connections or followers or whatever it is. And I said, do you have 50,000 good followers? And his response to the same thread where he just announced that he had 50,000 followers was, it's not about the numbers, it's about the quality of the connections. Like, yeah, but you were just bragging that you hit 50,000. Unqualified, 50,000. So the question about maximizing versus optimizing, what if you only had one connection on LinkedIn, but it was the most life-changing, career-changing, future elevating, outlook enhancing, whatever your measure is. What if that one connection made the difference? And the other 49,999 were like fluff, distraction. So if you're focused more on these numbers and you're not proactively engaging with the human behind some of those numbers, some, not all. Some of them are robots or click farms. So it might be a crew of people that randomly jump on a social media account and pretend to be. I got a lot of invites from people who claim they're usually women from Singapore working for Estee Lauder in New York. Fascinated with whatever it is I'm doing. So you get these random invites. That's not a person. It's not a human. So the value of these associations becomes something to actually evaluate, not only from my perspective. Right? I want to say, I'm not looking right now, and I don't keep track of this, but I think I have like 3,100 connections on LinkedIn, and I will be honest, I have removed a substantial number of connections. If people are unresponsive, what's the value if I email you or I reach out on LinkedIn, which I don't do anymore, and I don't hear from you, you decide you don't want to respond for whatever reason. Maybe you're no longer on this planet. Then the value of that connection is almost zero. It's essentially zero. So yeah, I've deleted hundreds over the years, over the 20 years that I was using LinkedIn. So in August of 2023, 20 years, August 11th, I want to say, I said, okay, it's been 20 years. I am ramping down my usage of LinkedIn. The social graph, the network graph is interesting. Figuring out who I know from which companies and where my college colleagues ended up working, where they work today, etc. Interesting. Do I want to rely on that network? No. Do I want to use LinkedIn as a service in the middle? I was going to say man in the middle, but service in the middle between my communications, like LinkedIn. I would like to direct message someone. No, I'm going to email you. Ideally, I'm going to talk to you at some point as a person, either on the phone, maybe a video call, or in person in real life. Why do I have to restrict my communications to a platform like LinkedIn with their weird rules about who can connect to whom, etc.? I find it unhealthy at best, and it could be worse. Probably is. So I think there's that direction, but also, what is the value? If I'm going to say, oh, I got 50,000 followers, or I got 40 million followers, or I got, I'm connected to 3,000 people on LinkedIn, is the value? And I say, well, I was connected to 4,000, but 1,000 weren't working out. What about the 3,000 remaining? Are they happy with their being connected to me in some way? The 40 million people follow you. Oh, we're diehard fans, or we got to be connected so we can see what you're posting on LinkedIn, which is kind of silly because maybe you should just be interested in what someone is doing enough to proactively ask them or keep in touch or allow them to control their narrative rather than handing it off to LinkedIn. So the age we live in doesn't really make that a first choice. It's easier to maximize your numbers, to post occasionally according to whatever the quote unquote rules of the platform are. And then you hopefully get more connections, more followers, more friends, more likes, more shares. And the cycle continues. And all the while this sounds trite at this point. It's a little overused, but you're feeding the algorithm, right? So it's true, even though we're hearing it too much. It's almost sounding like it doesn't mean anything anymore. You just keep feeding the algorithm, are those even words? So I feel like my voice is a little bit more relaxed, but I don't feel like it's as strong. So maybe by the end of this episode, hopefully there will be an audible difference. My voice sounds or feels a little tired, like labored. So we'll see how it goes. So I've had some aha moments over the years, more than I usually try to do 3 things. The rule of 3. So I will offer 3 quickies here. We're more and more connected electronically, as I've been saying now. So you can pretty much reach people pretty quickly, essentially for free, anywhere. Right. There was a time when I was in college, making a phone call to Europe was a little weird. The dialing of the country code, and if you're dialing through a switchboard or a calling bank, like in college, we had a digital switchboard, so you'd have to dial out, and you're like, okay, I did that, and then I think I have a dial tone, and then I get the international. You got to do the 011, and then you got to do the country code, and then you'll hear these clicking and bleeps and blops and whatnot. And then when you would call an international phone number, there was often very noticeable delay, maybe some echo. So it was a little bit of a challenge to make a voice phone call. And I would end up working at True Vision in part of my travels, which was a company that AT&T spun off or was otherwise involved with to make video calling over existing phone networks, like voice networks, ISDN probably, make that easier with video compression and whatnot. So those are early days. So it was a challenge, to be sure. So today I could email or place a call of some sort to someone in Europe. It's like they're in the same room. Replies to messages. I was talking about writing people letters. When you send someone an email, you get a quoted response. You'll see what you sent them, and they can respond. The legacy of inline replies is annoying to people. I used to be told, don't do that. I hate when you do that, because I would say, if you ask me 3 questions in your email, I will insert my answers to each. Question 1, answer 1. Question 2, answer 2. So your quoted text, then my response. You can use color coding, which is not completely accessible, but most email clients use the greater than symbol as a quoted content. So there's an existing standard methodology, but people prefer no, just reply at the top. Just put everything at the top. I don't want to read through my message to get to your message. So okay, but fact is, I can respond to your message. You will be able to remember precisely what you sent me, either in my message or in your own sent messages if you store them. Yeah, I can respond to you instantaneously. And now with messaging, you could pose each question as a message, and I can respond to the first one while you're typing the second one, etc. So really, the age of connectivity has extended well beyond where we might have thought, okay, that works well enough. Oh, now I can tell when you're typing. Eventually, we'll know what you're thinking while you're typing. Like, you are in your mind, you are thinking there, but you mean there. You're leaving the M. It should be whom, not who. So you can actually see the thought process, perhaps. So yeah, communication, essentially real time, anywhere on the planet. Almost for free, not for free. And there are people who don't have access to these devices, so I'm being a little bit of an elitist by suggesting that this is a universally available service. I do know it's not. many, even in the United States, suburban and rural, especially rural areas, may not have the same or any access to internet network services like fiber or copper, cable, twisted pair. Maybe they don't have cell towers, so you're not in range of a cell phone. So you might have plain old telephony services from, the early days, the decades ago. So you're like, well, I can at least call 911, maybe. So access to the internet is not universal. Everybody wants it to be. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be seen. We'll find out. But the fact is, you can connect with anyone, especially if you know them, anytime, pretty easily, if you're in the 80%. Okay. So when I was visiting the city of residence of a college friend, that person had obtained at some point a Handspring PDA. Handspring was a company that spun off from Palm and then rejoined Palm. So it was a PDA that was connected to the internet or connected over some radio network, eventually to the internet. So he said, I can have email on my PDA, personal digital assistant, and it wasn't directly on the internet. I don't think it was. It might have been using some cellular radio technology. I honestly don't remember. But the take home, now I can get my email in my pocket. I'm always, I can always respond to this. And so he was very excited to show me this thing. By the way, this is the same person that when I was working at Apple, this obviously the Handspring was later. But when I was working at Apple, the first time contracting back in the Power Mac days, I was sitting at my LC2, I think it was, with my little 12-inch monitor. This is my admin machine, and I get probably an email from this person. Hey, have you seen Mosaic, the World Wide Web? Have you seen this? It's pretty neat. And I was like, oh, check that out. That's pretty cool. So this is a person who was as excited about technology as I am. Very excited that he can now respond to emails anytime. But he never responded to my emails. So I remember saying, I know now, I could have assumed before, I know now that you have a device in your pocket and that you're able to respond to email immediately. So when you don't, I will know that that is a conscious choice you are making. Maybe not immediately, but I know you are receiving emails directly to your person. And this made me think, especially the ghosting, the mokusatsu notion, like, especially if it's someone you would say is a good friend or a family member even, or trusted colleague, co-founder of your stuff. I know, especially today, I know you check your email religiously. I know, I can see in my chat client, I know you've seen this message, double check mark. I know you've seen it. This is the same sort of thing that will drive younger people crazy, but it can drive anybody crazy, right? Now I'm not going to be like, oh my God, they hate me. And it's not going to affect my my personal feelings about the world and my life and everything. I'm not going to take this as some sort of, oh my God, nobody respond. But I am going to take it as an indication that I should not waste my time. Like, okay, I sent you a message. I know you read it. You didn't respond. I'm not going to spend more time on this. Too many other people in the world to interact with. Too many other things to do, things to accomplish. So proactive silence, mokusatsu, whatever the intent, like, hey, you can respond to this later if you want, but I'm not going to yell into the Grand Canyon and listen for my own voice. I need to get some sort of response or it's not worth it. So this is a question of valuing your own time. And anyone who's listening to this right now, you have at some point seen an email and you're like, I don't want to respond to that. So you don't. I've done that too. My intent may be any of, I don't want to deal with that person. I have responded to 25 emails from them this month. I'm going to skip this one. I want to send a message to that person that they are not important. I don't want to have their opinions. I don't want to even entertain what they have written. I'm not going to read it. I opened it. I didn't actually read it. They got the double check marks. So you can passive aggressively send that message to, like, yeah, I opened your message. couldn't tell you what it said. So there's all kinds of passive aggressive or strategic or even tactical maneuvers that we can make with these technology indicators and signals. So I'm sure we've all done this. I try to respond to people as soon after I open a message, as soon as I see it, as I can, hopefully same day, because I am conscious of the notion that, I took the time to contact you. My favorite is, hey, I think you might benefit from knowing, connecting with, talking to, having a lunch or coffee or whatever with this other person I know. There might be some sort of benefit on both sides. You guys should know each other. And then if nobody responds, you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to waste my time on that. So there's email and messaging and real time, especially real time communications and feedback about double check marks and things, can either be taken personally as an affront, an insult, or more usefully can be taken as an indication where you should spend your time. So if you're not going to bother responding, and this has happened just in the past 2 weeks, I think. If somebody says, hey, yeah, let's pick a place to meet up. Let's go have a coffee. It's been a while. And if I respond minutes later, like, oh, okay, here, how about this date? Sometime in the first part of the day, sometime before noon, down in your part of the city, the southern, not outside of the city of Las Vegas, in fact. Like, okay, yeah, how about this? When in this general geographical area, what do you think? Never hear from that person again? Okay. I think I have what I need here. This is especially true nowadays when it comes to job referrals. Now, back in the day, and I've talked about this somewhere else, I can't remember where. Back in the day, 90s, Silicon Valley, blowing up, you could hand your resume to someone. Or this happened, so I would be handed a resume. Hey, can you, yeah, sure. You hand it to the hiring manager. You make sure it gets through some whatever HR processes. You make sure that they are contacted. You tell them, oh, you're going to be talking to so-and-so. That person's a stickler for, whatever. You could give them a little inside track on what to expect. You maybe provide them a little of the hallway chat about how the interview went. This was a big deal. It's how so many people were able to connect at so many different companies. The downside, it's how so many people got jobs they should never have gotten at various companies. A friend of a friend is a useful connection concept, but not always a great, now sometimes great, not always a great way to hire people. Getting your friends in sounds good, but if they don't do anything, they don't know what they're doing, they don't contribute to the challenges at hand, it could be a little expensive. So I've seen that happen multiple times. But there are people whom I have taken the resume, taken their mission to get a job as my own, and I've done my part. I've maybe a couple times got them a little bit above and beyond. There's one in particular that always comes to mind. It was a person working in another country. He happened to have a U.S. citizenship, so he was, I think, dual citizenship parents, and he wanted to work in the U.S. and I myself did not like wave a magic wand, but I saw through as far as I could, made the connections, asserted that this is the reason why this person should be brought over to move, relocate, repatriated to the U.S., etc. And that happened. That person did get the job, good outcome. That very same person, probably 4 years later, I said, hey, the company where you're working has an interesting role open. And in fact, he may have shared it in some way, like, hey, we're hiring here. And I may have seen it somewhere, or maybe he even sent it to me directly. And I said, hey, maybe I would be interested in this. This looks interesting. And he said, oh, maybe. And I said, well, you could put in a good word. And he said, I don't know. We've never really worked together. And I was like, really? I should have said that 4 years ago. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. However, unfortunately, I think that is more common now. It's very transactional. It's not nearly so karmic. Like, am I going to get Am I going to get a referral bonus? I always tell the Netscape story. I referred 7, I think it was. Five? I think it was 5. I think it was 5 colleagues from Apple to Netscape when I was working at Netscape. And there was a $1,500 referral bonus if they had accepted a job offer. So I just remember it was a $7,500 loss to me. All 5 received job offers. All 5 declined. And I was like, I wasn't mad. I wasn't, I didn't call them like, what did it cost me? I was like, oh, that would have been cool to get $1,500 per person. But I referred them because I knew they were interested in moving to, relocating, changing job, whatever. I enjoyed working at Netscape. I'm like, give me your resume. I'll submit it to the relevant areas. I kind of knew a lot of people at Netscape at the time. So HR actually called me in and said, we're curious because you referred 5 people. They all declined offers. Did you happen to talk to them? Which I had. And strangely, they all said the same thing. Netscape presented to each of them the notion that we are the coolest company on the block, and we are going to tell you right now, you might be cool enough to work with us. Like the attitude was extremely off-putting. So I said that. So there you go. Like, do you want to work on a product that has 40 million people using your software? Whatever it was, whatever the numbers were back then. So the notion of helping, using your network to get jobs or to help another person get a job, I think has become very transactional. I've been seeing that more and more now. Like, basically what it comes down to is, hey, I sent you my resume on that thing. You said, oh yeah, I gave it to HR. That's it. That's all you're going to get, if that. So I'm not saying there's 100%, probably 80% of the time. Very transactional, even to friends and colleagues whom you have worked with. So I think it's a rarity, especially if they're younger. Sorry. I think it's a rarity now to find people who take the task as one of their own to help out with a job search effort and whatnot. What can I do to help? Who can I connect you with? Who can I give a reference to? Like, hey, they're going to call, and if you can, mostly you're not allowed to be too editorial. It's mostly start date, end date. Yes, they worked here. But, if it's an off the record, hey, I got a resume from your friend, I would say you should hire them immediately. That's why I gave it to you, or something along those lines. So yeah, I've done that, and I don't know that that's so common. I don't know though. I don't know if I received that in kind. So that's kind of unfortunate. Another aha, like in any asymmetric relationship, you will soon discover that when you reduce or halt completely your typical behavior. So if you are, you're always the one putting in the effort, organizing whatever it is. You always show up early, stay late. You always make the phone calls, get the crew together. You put in the time and effort and energy and sometimes the money. And other people really appreciate the pat on the back and all that. When you stop doing those things, or when you say, hey, I can't put in the 200%, I'm going to have to drop it down to 80%. You may find that the people that were so fond of your contribution are not nearly so quick to be supportive, to step in, to even be around. They may be like, and this has happened to me here in Vegas. This is the way Vegas is. There were, when I first moved here, there were a couple of people that said, oh, you moved here from Silicon Valley? What would it take for Vegas to be Silicon Valley? So let's have coffee, let's have a meetup, let's talk, and they would mostly complain about some of the meetings that they had been in. Not that it was inaction, but that, no, they weren't complaining about inaction. They were complaining about being in meetings that led to inaction. So in other words, they had the ear of the people to talk to, and it wasn't moving. So that's maybe something for them to consider in their, they should be thinking about some of the things I'm talking about today. But when I said, now I'm working for Intel, I'm going to be gone a lot, I'll be traveling, I don't really have the time to focus on the things we were talking about as often as we were. Hello? Did you guys just hang up on me? So when I was not going to be as committed to the discussion because I was, leaving the country traveling for a day job, for a paying gig. Suddenly they don't want to know me. This is a totally normal thing in the Vegas area. This is the way. It is the way. But this happens. I mean, it's just a normal thing. This is an asymmetric relationship, which I think is the crux of this section of my presentation today. Your expectations, their expectations, very different. So the sooner you see that, the sooner you recognize that, the better. I tend to lead with, what can I do? What can I bring? What can I offer? How can I be a part of, proactive? And this gets expensive, not just money, but it gets expensive in general. And if that is why you are welcome to the inner circle or welcome to the club or brought in to sit at the table and whatnot, and then you're like, okay, this week I can't do the same things I was doing before. And suddenly, like, hey, where's my chair? Oh, sorry, this table is full. You are not in the inner circle anymore. So this happens. It's totally normal, but it's a huge red flag. Something definitely to ponder if you see this happening around you. Like, what? As soon as I stop leaving big tips, you guys don't even want to know my name in my usual whatever, restaurant, salon, barbershop, whatever, right? It totally happens. And especially in a place like Vegas, which is very transactional and very gratuity driven for a lot of, I'll just say the service industry, but it's not, I mean, there are some subtleties there. And I have been in the service industry, so I'm not saying I don't understand it, but it is so important here. I find it interesting, but also I find it something to be not only aware of, but be extra cautious of. And this is after 10 years of living here. I'm pretty sure about it. And even the people who don't live here, who aren't from here, like native people who've moved here, I'm going to say like within a year, it's kind of contagious. And I think what happens is kind of what I'm describing today. Eventually you're like, you know what? If I keep offering and offering and offering, or bringing and bringing and doing, it doesn't get me anywhere. So why should I keep doing that? So I will back way off. I'll go way to the other side of the spectrum. So you can see when people stop showing up so much, stop being the louder voice and so on. They kind of go, you know what? This isn't getting me nowhere. I've seen it happen. Me and some other people, a lot of other people. So I think it's just a cascading sort of a contagion. And could it change? Yes. And I'll talk about that towards the end here. So basically you gotta figure these things out early, or you'll waste your life, or at least half of it, as I may have. I'm not sure yet, but not waste. Waste is a strong word. In some cases, it's the right word. In some cases, it's like, well, your first friend from preschool, your friends from elementary school, if you were friends with them in high school, if you went to the same schools, you don't hear from them so much, that's okay. You've changed a lot. Even if you are 18 right now, be ready. Everybody in your yearbook is not going to stay in touch with you every day. Oh, but we have our class of 2023 Slack. Okay. That's going to get old. It's going to get old by June. There's something to be said for like, okay, I'm not in the same situation anymore. I don't work at the same job. I'm not living in the same city. I don't go to the same school. My connection with you was based mostly on the commonality, the community that we were a part of. I don't like that word community, but we were geographically proximal. We were in the Apple II users group. That's how I knew you. I've talked about my users group fame and fortune back in the Apple II days. So the Arizona Desert Apple Menagerie, which would later become the Arizona Apple Users Group. And users groups were a cool thing, but those were people you had a common interest. You might become friendly with these people. If you switch to a PC and you're running MS-DOS, well, now I really don't have a reason to come to this meetup group. I might come, and then you're going to, you're using a PC, you're not even Apple. And at first they're kind of messing around, but at some point you're like, I should go to the PC users group. I should be talking about DOS, not pro DOS. So that's when you start to say, well, why was I connected to these people? Why was I spending time and energy? Because, you were getting something out of it, educational. You got, I've talked about, I got a deal on a video card for my Apple IIe from Checkmate Technologies, because the owner of the company was a member of the group, and he was like, oh, I'm giving discounts for the 1 megabyte Checkmate video card for the extended slot in the Apple IIe. Very exciting times. And I said, oh, this has a green phosphor configuration. Can I switch to amber? Yeah, I said amber. He's like, yeah, you can switch to any color you want. You just have to pop out it's probably like a PAL or something. I can't remember. Just pop this out, put in and he's like, come by the office, I'll do it. I'll switch them for free. I'll keep the green one. And I was like, okay. So, done. I have not talked to that person probably since. Were we friends? No. Were we friendly? Of course. An acquaintance. We had common interests. He had a product. I bought the product at a discount. Thank you very much. Switched out the chip. Awesome. I told people it was a great product, which it was. Really more of a business transaction. So it's tricky sometimes, but sometimes the people that we are referred to as a friend, oh, this is my friend from so-and-so. You really got to watch like politics. My good friend from other state. Look at the Senate floor. At the House is a little bit more contentious, I think. But the Senate is always it used to be the distinguished gentleman, but at some point some eyes were opened like, oh, there's a whole nother part of the population. But my good friend from so-and-so, everything is about friend and collegiality and so on. But, Facebook has ruined that word forever. So you have to kind of decide, where do I want to spend the time? We only have a limited time on the planet until they work out the ultimate immortality equation or whatever. So for most of us, you got so much time. You should spend only so much of it on one-sided transactions. And it is very difficult to make the determination early, but it is something to practice at. After a good half century, you might start to say, oh, wait, I think I kind of get it. Kind of. I'm going to get some tea here. My tea is no longer hot, but we'll see. So social media platforms have totally warped our sense of who is around us, how many people are around us. They've made analytics something that people talk about as though it mattered. As an experiment on Facebook so it'll be 3 years this summer. So just about 3 years since I really used Facebook. I still get emails every once in a while like, hey, you're missing out on okay. I think I have 3 Facebook accounts. So one of them, I just said, I'm going to accept every friend request. I'm going to click on invite to every recommendation. And I think the maximum is 5,000 friends, something like that. So I hit the 5,000. Absolute garbage. Absolutely not worth reading or consuming in any way the drivel and worse that was being presented to me now by these 5,000 people who I didn't really know. Mostly I had my other account was for people I actually knew, right? So if I actually know you, college friends and so on, use this account. So basically the 5,000 people, the friends, became an experiment in the value proposition of being connected, quote unquote, friends with people you don't know is drastically different from even a casual level of acquaintance. So the social media platforms and the numbers and the tracking them and to show you you've got invites and and it's funny that they don't tell you so much when people leave, but if you watch oh my God, I lost 10 friends, and then you figure out who they are and all, it's like people take it very personally. And I think initially most of us would have like, oh, what does that even mean to unfriend? Like that's a proactive step you took and very passive aggressive on this platform. And then you didn't have to say anything to me. There's a prototypical ghosting engagement. Now you can just ghost people anywhere you want. You literally just have to do nothing, and your mission accomplished. So the act of unfriending someone is the passive aggressive next step. Like, I'm not going to talk to them, but I'm also going to tell them with one click that I'm not going to talk to them. So I've wasted way too much time over the years on that. It's one of the several reasons I've basically completely backed off of social media platforms. I keep the LinkedIn account because the social graph is useful, but I even add people. It's a business card. So used as a business card, it still has value. As Facebook, as a professional version or unprofessional version of Facebook, not quite. But it gives you a false sense of affiliation when you post things. Well, I mean, you can tell when you post things on LinkedIn and you get no engagement. Like, why am I posting here? Who cares? I don't feel sad. I feel like, why am I wasting the time? I can put that time into posting somewhere else, or maybe just maintain my blog or my internet presence and make sure people can find it, make sure it's discoverable, make sure that people want to engage in whatever way, pictures, words, videos, whatever it is. But to be completely beholden to a third-party platform that is profiting off of your work through the attention economy is not quite as appealing when you're like, well, I'm spending this time, but I'm really not getting anything from it. If the value proposition is that, hey, you'll get more views, and you don't get the views, you're like, then it's an economic question. It's not emotional. It's like, this platform doesn't work for me. Done. So a component of that might be the people on the other side of those accounts that are not engaging with you. Really, though, the platform, not ideal. So it might give a false sense of, like I said, the affiliation, the connection with your other network members, which is why, as I mentioned, I've removed a lot of people. If they don't respond, if you have a network of computers and one of them doesn't respond anymore, you unplug it. You replace it with one that does. So a platform like LinkedIn, or really any of them, should really be treated that way. Unfriending, blocking, these passive-aggressive activities are super easy on these platforms. So you can do that in a huff. You can be angry, I'm going to unfriend you. And you can refriend them later, which is really, at the end of the day, that is true. You can use these as indicators, like lights on the dashboard. Like if you have a low fuel warning in your car, or a low charge if you're driving an electric vehicle, your car is not telling you you're going to die. You're going to be stuck out here on the freeway in the middle. It's telling you have a low battery, low fuel level. You might even run out. You might be stuck somewhere. But when you put the fuel in, you charge up the batteries, now that indicator is gone. So I'm going to unfriend you on Facebook. Well, maybe later after you've talked in person, you're like, oh yeah, I was just mad at you and I wanted to do something passive aggressive. I wanted to bring in this third-party corporation that's worth billions of dollars and have them be the intermediary because I've forgotten what it's like to be human. So yeah, friending, unfriending, blocking, view, shares, all this stuff is become silly. So I don't think they're healthy signals for assessing the value of relationships. So I've kind of removed those. So now I look much more strongly, I give much more weight to, I guess, the actual personal interactions. Do you return a phone call? Do you return an email? Do you respond in a useful way? Do you show up when you say you're going to? These are not clicks. I don't care if you like or share anything on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. You can do that if you want. I'm not going to take that as a reading or as an indication. If that's the way you intend it, we have a mokusatsu problem. But to me, these tools are exactly that. You shouldn't say it's a tool. Like, I don't like the way that guy is swinging my hammer to bang those nails into that board. So, it's a tool. So now I'm going to refer to the Medium article, which you probably cannot read. I'm going to skim through it pretty quickly because we're already over an hour. I've had a lot to say on this topic, but I'm going to switch through this. And this was the thing that kind of prompted me. I saw this last week, about a week ago. And left me pondering some things. So, of course, I'm not open on that. There it is. Okay. So, again, you probably can't see this. If you can, I would skim over this article. I think you may find something interesting here. It was published on April 28th by Oceana, and I believe the profile picture is, well, anyway, Oceana, Ossiana, Teppenhart. I may be pronouncing that poorly. I wish someone told me to disengage whenever this happened. Subtitle: A relationship, scene, or job that does any of these things is DOA, dead on arrival. So again, I'm not going to read the whole article, obviously, and this is her work. His work is that this person's work, the author's work. So there are some challenges. They go through overpriced living situation, clients that didn't appreciate the person, people who hated this person but demanded access. That happens all the time. That was the asymmetric relationship. People the author prioritized who didn't care much about the author, and more asymmetry, probably more subtle. People who hate you but demand access, they're definitely asymmetric, but it's probably a little bit more obvious. People need to be near you, so they place themselves near you, but there's nothing in it for you, so it's really more of a tax on your time. Whereas people who that you prioritize, that you give your time to, that's truly the asymmetric, where you find when you stop giving that time, or when you can't give as much, or when you have to put some limits or constraint, suddenly they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not coming to your meeting. It becomes a thing. And then there are just bad people. There are people that you should not spend your time on. So quoting this 2-sentence paragraph. In other words, I wore myself out trying to win over people who never were going to do anything but F this person over. Take from the author much more than they were giving. I felt like if I struggled harder, maybe they'd see the light. Maybe I'd be enough. So this is very... I have this too, where you want to impress people. You're looking for some approval. You're looking for some reciprocity. Sometimes you're looking for that symmetry. So you're like, well, if I'm a good friend, or if I contribute my time and effort to this thing, perhaps I will receive something in kind, recognition, collegiality, and all that. The challenge comes when you do this for people. You can have a cause. I think this is totally different. If you have a cause, if you have a reason to give time to something that is not about the people, but about the people doing it, it might be a cause that helps people you will never know. They may never know you. But if you are, housing, homeless and housing issues, feeding people in places and regions of the planet that don't have access to food or clean water, perhaps, these are causes that you may want to spend time or energy or even money on. That's very different, because the value proposition in general, the value of charitable acts is a philosophical debate. Why you're doing it for selfish reasons, because you just want to make yourself feel better. Maybe that's true. When you are doing things at a individual, person-to-person level, you should ask yourself, why am I trying to be a part of this? Do I want that person to like me? Is that the value proposition? So I think I got over that a long time ago. But at the end of the day, there's some reason to contribute your time and energies and skills and expertise and your network connections. And it depends on what you are looking for in return. What is the value for value proposition? I myself have taken lately to saying my gratis efforts are maxed out. So here's my hourly rate. You want to send over an SOW, statement of work. Make sure you tell me where to send my invoices, and we'll set up the payment terms, and we'll go from there. So a lot of things that I would have done for free, or the curse, let me buy you a coffee and pick your brain. Oh, no. I do not work for coffee, except for podcasting. No, but that could be anything from, let me take you to lunch. I don't think so. I couldn't get, so these are the subject headlines on the subheads. I couldn't get people to focus on a specific task or communicate with me. This happens all the time here in Vegas in particular, like drastically to a debilitating degree. Hey, are you gonna do, innovate for Vegas? Definitely. Hey, we're having our monthly hackathon meetup. We work on projects. Are you gonna be there? Yep. Okay, it's Saturday and Sunday. You can pick one or both days. Okay, come on Saturday. Okay, let me add you to the GitHub org. Here's that, get you onboarded. You gonna be here tomorrow? Yep. Never hear from that person again. Certainly not on Sunday. Certainly never after. Like, okay, well, I spent this time. You said now you're not doing anything. I wasted my time completely. And now I don't even want you to come back. So it's very easy to encounter this. I couldn't get people to focus on a specific task or communicate with me. That's happened here 50 or 100 times in the last year and a half. The people, I'm not going to read each, there's text in these subsections. I'm not here to reproduce this creative work. The people made me feel like nothing I could do was good enough. This has not happened nearly as often. It hasn't happened often for me here in Vegas over the last 2 to 3 years. Has it happened over the last 10 years? Maybe. Has it happened globally through life? Of course. There are always going to be people. There's one person at Palm. My manager at Palm, what was it, Palm Computing? I don't know. Palm, and I was working on the pre. My manager there was absolutely awful as a manager of humans. Completely ridiculous. And he treated several people far worse than he treated me. But, essentially, to quote Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? That was his attitude all the time. To have that as a manager, awful. So in those situations, it's best to let them go, I think. Reassurance was off the table. If you're seeking reassurance from others, it's time to not depend on that. It's very easy if you're seeking that, it's very easy to wait for it or to feel as though it's your fault if you don't receive it. There are some people who just don't want to be on that transaction. That's fine. That's what you just have to value your own time. So this one didn't resonate with me quite as much, but it just in general, if you're doing anything for, really, when you think about it, you're looking for the likes. So if you want to translate this into social media analog, if you're doing it for the likes, and you'll see this with content creation in general, like, oh, I'm getting fewer likes. I get more likes when I make videos about tacos, but I really like burritos, but I get more likes for tacos. So I'm going to focus more on tacos. So now you're not being authentic because you really want the reassurance of those likes and views. So you've kind of changed yourself to suit that. I think that could be problematic, and it may be hard to recognize, especially because everything is about those analytics now. So something to think about. Just checking my capture. I use Audacity to capture, by the way. I got the sinking feeling that people were purposefully leaving me out of things. This literally happened to me in July, is when I became aware of it. July 2023. There was an innovation hub, like work group meeting run by someone in Clark County. They're trying to make Clark County or Southern Nevada an innovation hub, which they did not succeed in doing. There are 31 locations around the country that the federal government was going to give funding to and recognition and so on. Reno, or somewhere in Washoe County, northern part of Nevada, had a big strike on mining. They found a ton of lithium. So like, we're going to do energy storage technology innovation. Yep. So Reno's on the list. Southern Nevada, not so much. So they're having these meetings to put together the proposal and, discuss proposals for bids on projects and the proposal to be on this group. And the people that were sitting on that meeting, which I found out about after the fact, they all knew each other. A lot of handshakes, a lot of closed door meeting type characters. But the people that were there, I think, were not best serving the goal So when I spoke to the person that was actually running this meeting, I said, "Hi, I understand you're having this innovation committee thing." "Yeah, yep." I said, I'm sort of surprised. And she mentioned who was on this in this group. I said, "Wow, I find it amazing. That person you mentioned, I've been talking to them for 10 years about some innovation program, city scale, how to enable and connect college to entrepreneurs, all this stuff." So yeah, we had this conversation 10 years ago, ongoing. I just talked to him about it, a few weeks ago. Like, remember that? Oh yeah. This other person knows that I'm the managing director of Innovate for Vegas. It's kind of what we're looking at here. This other person knew I worked at Intel in the Maker Innovator group. So I'm curious to know why the Innovation Hub, and I was in the, these sound like humble brags, but I do have a point. I was in this assessment of the ecosystem as an entrepreneur, what is it? Entrepreneurial Support Organization. Yeah. ESO. I'm listed in there. I'm a part of the startup scene here. I've been talking about innovation for years, this and that. She's like, "Nope, I've never heard of you." Okay. But the problem was the people that are in the meeting, whom I knew, they chose to not say, "Why is Dan not in this meeting? This is right up his alley." So I started to realize that, I don't know if it was like a conspiracy, but I do know that it was people were not thinking, how could we make sure we include people in this meeting that could make it be productive and valuable? So I don't know if purposefully is quite as applicable to that scenario, but definitely left out. And the take home was like, okay, well, I'm certainly not going to give my time to people who are leaving me out, who don't recognize the value of a contribution I could have made. So, okay. They watched me suffer and had the means to make it stop and didn't do anything. This doesn't happen too often. This is probably because I've tended to not be around people who seem like this in the first place. Maybe one or two now and then or something, but for the most part, I have not run into this in as harsh a way as it sounds in this article. I've certainly watched people kind of turn a blind eye where they could have been helpful and didn't. It wasn't really suffering. It was more of a, do you want to jump in on this? It kind of connects more to what I just described with the committee meeting thing. There are some people who think about the meeting and they're like, this could be a better meeting if we make sure we include these 5 people I don't see sitting here. But there are other people like, I'm just happy to be at this meeting. I must be cool. I'm going to pat myself on the back. So could go either way. I will say the next point here will connect to this directly. My house fire didn't matter because they had a hangnail. The author of this article did not actually have a house fire, but I did. April 8th, 2013. So there were, I think I mentioned this earlier, 80% of the people were normal human response. Like, is everybody okay? Are you okay? Do you have a place to stay? Is everything working out? The upper 10% were like, do you want to stay on our couch? Do you need any help moving things? What do you need how can I help you? So that's rare. That's a rare find in general in humans. So that was nice to see in some people, not expected. So impressive and a pleasant surprise. And then there were some people in the bottom 10% that were not necessarily walking up to me saying, "Hey, campfire boy," because everything I owned smelled like smoke for a while. That was a good time. But really more of a, "Oh, I heard you had a fire." Like super petty. We'll just say super petty. So yeah, I had an actual fire and I saw that some people, a very small number, seemed to take some sort of joy or satisfaction from that. But luckily, I think some people might have a larger number of people that is the case. So I luckily didn't have that many people like that around me. So those people were very easily excised. So short list, crumple it up, throw it into a fire somewhere. So I've not had that problem in any sort of troubling quantity. But the take home, and that basically brings us to the end of the the article, the final sentence, I just wish I'd realized that it's not my responsibility to teach others to be good to me earlier. So the author wishes she I think it's a she. I think is it the picture. Yeah. So the picture of the author appears to be a woman. So I could be wrong. I believe this is the case. So this person also has a buy me a coffee link. So yeah, when you're being friends, or when you're trying to be friends, or even colleagues, or you're trying to be helpful, when you're trying, you have a reasonable response, or reasonable expectation that your efforts will either be acknowledged, they might be appreciated, they might even be returned in kind in some way, right? Some sort of yin yang, like, oh, you helped me out that one time, I'll help you. I owe you a favor, things like this. But it's not your responsibility to drive that. If you don't find it, don't spend time. And this is something I've been realizing much more. And so that's where I get the Crazy Ivan, right? The Crazy Ivan in the movie, if you've seen the movie, you can visualize it. But basically, the submarine, the towed sonar arrays, or generally sonar, the blind spot, if you will, the deaf spot, is around the propellers because they're churning up the water, not maybe cavitating, but basically the motion of the propeller through the water creates displacement in the water, and these displacements are noisy. So the sonar will pick up the noise that is right there, and it won't pick up a submarine that's 100 yards behind you, because the submarine is being very quiet. So you have this blind spot. So Crazy Ivan, clearing the baffles, is you turn sharply, very quickly. You can read the article, but you can full stop and just coast through the water and then turn. So now you're able to go silent. And when you turn, you can immediately start listening for any other movement through the water. The other submarine may not be able to stop as quickly, etc. But once you're now perpendicular, for example, to the other, you didn't know the submarine was there. So once you're perpendicular, you can pick up their movements. It won't be so easy for that other submarine, to get behind you again. So it's an actual maneuver. However, to me, at a personal level, the Crazy Ivan, the aspect change, is I've been going along, same behavior, same expectations, working with the same people, and I keep getting the same results. And no, I will not be inserting a completely false quote that is not Albert Einstein's concerning doing the same thing over and over again. I hate that quote. It's dumb. But if you're moving through life and you're doing the same things, same people around you, and everything, you're like, man, I can't get anyone to show up to do what they said they're going to do, to be helpful in any way. I always try to help them, etc., etc. So at some point you're like, what if I take a hard left turn right here and see who's behind me? And in this case, see who stays behind you. I've said this of the 300 here in Vegas. I've estimated the size of the startup scene at about 300 people. So I call them the 300 as if it's the famous graphic novel, Spartans. So the 300, if I was showing up and if I was creating things, trying to be proactive about elevation of this teeny tiny little community, I was finding in some cases being maligned or just devalued. That was a rarity, but a couple people, that was their MO. Most people were like, oh good, Dan's doing a thing, I will go to that thing. But I realized as soon as I stopped doing those things, those people stopped responding, stopped participating in conversations. Like, oh, as long as I'm doing, you'll show up. But if I don't want to spend the time, I just want to return to being a normal person, you're just going to blow me. Okay, great. Fewer Christmas cards to send out. Actually, I don't send out Christmas cards. So these are interesting times. So I've basically backed away, but I've done a Crazy Ivan for the 300. The take home, there are 2.3 million people in the Southern Nevada area, Clark County. And I just mentioned an estimated 300 people in the startup scene. There are 577,000 people residing in the city of Las Vegas. Okay. So once you factor out, like, I'm not going to spend time on the 300, there's still 2.3 million people. 300 people is 0% of 300 of 2.3 million. So yeah, they're getting wrapped up in this little tiny micro community, quote unquote community, ends up being a drain personally on time, energy, resources, interest, etc. So crazy Ivan. There's probably about 3 or 4 people back there. The rest I will never hear from again, probably. So these are interesting times. Anyone with an entrepreneurial bent knows or should know that sometimes it's necessary to go it alone or to consider very seriously a reduction in the distractions nearby for the sake of productivity at the very least. So I found this to be true right here in Vegas. In the downtown project, there were always these social activities, gatherings, the notion of serendipitous collisions and so on. And there were people that came here to the downtown project, to the Vegas area to pursue their startup dreams. And a lot of them got wrapped up into the social engagement components. But I would say, hey, I never see you at the meetups. I never see you at the dinner thing at Work in Progress. I never see you at the downtown lowdown, whatever. And I wasn't even in the downtown project. I was like a spectator. I had my day job with Intel. So if I was in town and I was, I can go to the downtown lowdown, see what's production near a street. I can go check it out and see what's going on, get the word. How come you never go to those? And the universal answer was, I don't have time. I'm working on my startup. So at some point, if you are serious about what you're doing, you have to really weigh where you spend your time, where you spend your energies. Sometimes you don't have the money, the extra funds, the disposable income, which you might even not have income. So you're like, I think instead of going to that networking event and spending $50 and wasting all 50 of those bucks, I think I'll just work on my startup, or I will talk to the people I'm working with, or I will contact someone I know who will respond and talk about some ideas. Or, so you start to really, really, really look at the value proposition of humans. It sounds very cynical, but you're like, I don't have the time. I don't have the luxury of having the time to spend wasting that time. So if you want to actually succeed with your effort and your endeavor, people that are not part of that success may be part of its failure. You have to be very careful, weigh where you're spending your mental energies, etc. Trust is a tricky thing. I'm basically reading these because I actually spent some time writing these words. So trust is a tricky thing, often associated with friendship without necessary vetting. So anybody can be your friend. I've been friends with so-and-so for 20 years. I haven't talked to them at all in 20 years, but we've been friends. So the whole notion of being a friend, Facebook is completely ruined, like I said. But this has been generally true. I've known so-and-so for 20 years. You met them 20 years ago, and you started talking to them 2 weeks ago about a thing. Oh, remember we... So sometimes it's very easy to mistake familiarity with trust. It's very easy to mistake association or affiliation with friendship. You have associates. You have people you hang out with. Assuming a new contact met at a networking event is a new friend could be a problem. You may, and this has happened here, I've seen it, I've been a part of it. You may meet someone, you find many commonalities, but I just met the so-and-so at this meetup. You start referring them, you start, oh yeah, hey, here, meet my other friends who I've only known for 10 minutes longer than you. You're essentially vouching for this person. They're an acquaintance, not really a friend. They might not even be an acquaintance. You've known them for like an hour, maybe like an hour. Maybe you've known them for a few meetings, but do you really know this person? So it's really easy to assign trust or to spend your own karma with introductions or, oh, let me help you with that. Yeah, let me give you some of my time. Person I just met 20 minutes ago. So some vetting really needs to take place, and trust needs to be treated like a much more valuable commodity And trust has all the associated, yes, I would refer you. I would recommend this person for something. Why? Oh, because we've been friends for 20 minutes. So this is much more of a practical look, not only at how you interact with that person, but how you choose to interact with other people on behalf of that person so that you are not burning your trust for the wrong reasons. Real takes time. As one of my college roommates said, this is why I was trying to remember the word, because I'm like, well, I know I wrote this down. As one of my college roommates used to say rather enthusiastically, and this is true, I have no friends, only acquaintances. He really said that frequently. I think that's true to this day. I met him in 1989. I probably haven't talked to him for probably since I moved, probably 10 years. Have I known him between those? No, I knew him. I knew him a long time ago. I'm an acquaintance. So many years later, I hope he was not entirely correct. I hope he does have friends. But I think he's mostly correct about the second part. I think we all have many more acquaintances than we think initially. More acquaintances, fewer friends, and make that latter high value. And that is to say, more high value friends. You'll see this in the dating world which is a total mess. I'm happy to see that dating apps are finally done, or seeing that their future is short. Swipe left on Tinder. Dating apps are awful. When you think about it, I've kind of described the equivalent of that. I saw your picture. I saw 5 pictures of you. I didn't read your profile. I swiped right, and the economics of Tinder or whatever platform it is made it possible for us to connect, and whatever ensues after that, like absolutely superficial. 1 in a million, maybe there will be some actual legitimate connection, but absolutely superficial. When the same is true of business, colleague, professional network connection, clients, acquaintances you meet at gatherings, friends. The expression we hear so much in the world of dating lately, the same concern is probably valid, except for the probably, when it comes to high value. Think about that Medium article I flipped through really quickly here. Think about some of the things that you encounter with your group of associates. Do people come through as, you may not have these expectations. You may not come through for people, and you may not expect the same. And that's totally fine. So this is very me-centric, but that's the whole Quaggling Sand program. If I'm the only person talking, then why not talk about me? So from my perspective, people that are not willing to return the favor, so to speak, whether it's a timely response, whether it's some sort of supportive effort, if I'm asking for it. Now, if out of the blue they offer something that I didn't expect, like, oh, hey, I forwarded that thing you're working on to 25 people to help get the word out. Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's someone to pay attention to. Like, oh, maybe this person actually takes proaction seriously and really does things, even if they don't commit to it. If they see an opportunity to help out. These are the kinds of high value people to pay attention to. Maybe they don't check every single box. You're like, oh, but you didn't BCC me on these emails, so I didn't really know. So how can I, okay, well, those are finer points. But if you actually encounter people who say what they're going to do, and they do what they're going to say, or they do what they said they were going to do, not that you're expecting that validation from them, but when people do what they say they're going to do, or they go a little bit extra, they help out a little bit more because they have that opportunity to, or whatever their reasons. If you start to see that people are not just waiting for you to do for them, but they actually take some initiative, you're like, oh, maybe I found another person that I should have in my Rolodex, in my inner circle, right? Someone who will do what they're going to do. They're going to say what they're going to do. They're going to do what they're going to say, all the variations. These things are hard to find in people. So you have to be careful when you look for them, if you find them, if that's what you're looking for. Other people, totally fine with completely transactional, superficial relationships. I want this from you. You're going to get this from me, and that's it. There's a reason to do that, because it's a lot easier to do the accounting. So it's unfortunate, but it seems like that's the tenor of the modern, maybe post-pandemic, if you want. I think our connected world, social media, the pandemic didn't help. I don't think it's the reason, but I think maybe turned up the volume one notch, just past 10. But I think the thing to take home, and one of the reasons I've stopped using so much social media, there should be, for me, more personal interaction, more people showing up, more people that I'm going to associate with. If they don't show up, not going to associate. So people coming through when they say they're going to, people showing up when they say they're going to, people doing what they say they're going to do, people being honest about what, hey, I said I was going to be there tomorrow, but I can't, but I'll be there next time. And then they show up next time. Okay, that's fine. But people who just don't get it, they're in it for themselves. Solipsism reigns. Too much time has been spent on these things. And so the crazy Ivan, which I've basically been doing through 2024, but much more so in the last I'll say 2 months, is really, really taking a hard look at specific things and shortening the list a little bit. As again, Dave Attell, I think it was Dave Attell, comedian, a friend will help you move. A good friend will help you move a body. Does it have to be that extreme? And honestly, I think Dave Attell is referring to a joke or a statement about an Italian fraternal organization that is also very popular in Old Vegas. But either way, quality, high value people, keep those people around if you can. Be one of those high value people, and they should keep you around, and go from there. So my Christmas card list is much shorter. But despite that, I thank you for listening. Don't forget, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, coffee.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. Stay in touch with the show. There's actually Discord servers that I will make more mention of once the website's launched. Those things will be announced on those coffee sites. So slowly but surely, if you listen to Cafe Genius Impresarios, which is linked from the Buy Me a Coffee page, you can listen in on the formation of the startup project, which has a domain name in Las Vegas, in-los.vegas. The subdomains will be the SEO'd, probably PWA kind of app scheme. So all kinds of stuff that will fall out of that. But I do have experience in media websites, news. I think everybody's doing it wrong. So that'll be a little experiment. Everybody is wrong. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, if you don't see me around, it's because I'm busy working on my startup. So we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank my voice for barely making it. The tea didn't really help, I think. It's too bad. And we'll leave it there. Thank you again for listening. Take care.